Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given women in Islam? Well, if we rewind to our origin, and I don't mean our origin like, we came from India, or we came from Egypt, or we came from Saudi. I mean our origin of our forefather Adam alayhi salam and our mother Hawa. If we rewind to our origin, we find that even before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, our father, and Hawa, our mother, He made an announcement to the angels. And in this announcement He says, "Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa." Now there are different sort of theories about this life. Some people look at this life as a punishment. That this is a punishment, a time that we have to sort of do the time because of a mistake. Some people look at this life like a place of difficulty and pain. But what does Allah teach us in this announcement? What He teaches us is, when someone is a khalifa, what does it mean? He is telling the angels that verily I will place a deputy, a representative on earth. Now let me ask you this question. If a president makes you a deputy, makes you his or her representative, is that a punishment or an honor? It is actually the greatest honor, because this isn't a president, this isn't a king, this is the King of Kings. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that I am going to put a deputy, a representative of God, of Allah on earth. And so from the very beginning, even before He created Adam and Hawa, our father and our mother, He made clear that this was going to be an honored creation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. That indeed we have honored the children of Adam. And so as women, when we are trying to find our value, when we are trying to find our status, where should we find it? There's a lot of people who are going to give you definitions of your value, definitions of your worth. There are many people who are going to define your value and define your worth, for example, by the way you look, by the way you dress, by how much money you have, by your status. There are going to be people who are going to hand you this definition of your worth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a completely different definition of our worth as women and as human beings, children of Adam. And that is, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Indeed, the most honored of you with Allah is the one who has the most consciousness of Allah, the most taqwa of Allah. So right away we see that the standard of our honor and our dignity and our status isn't how we look, how we dress, what we carry, how expensive our purse is. I have recently found out that purses are expensive. And we are in Dubai. So, it is not based on these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us our worth. Now, when Allah said this to the angels, listen carefully. The angels replied with a very interesting and important question. The angels replied and said, what is translated as, will you place on the earth those who will spread mischief and spill blood, who will spread evil and spill blood? When the angels obviously celebrate the praises of Allah. Now this is a question, by the way, a lot of people struggle with. Now the angels are not arguing with Allah. Angels don't argue. But the angels are asking a natural question. Because one of the consequences of being human is that you'll be given choices. You will be able to take the wrong path. You will have the choice between the right path and the wrong path. And the Prophet ﷺ teaches us that there's only one right path and there's so many wrong paths. So many ways to deviate. So the angels are asking this natural question, which gets to the heart of human suffering. Spread mischief and spill blood. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds, I know what you do not know. What should we understand from this statement? What we should understand is that, number one, we should have comfort, because it means Allah knows exactly what He's doing. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a test, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken something away from you, or Allah has tested you with something painful, something that hurt you, then Allah knows exactly what He's doing. It is not an accident. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah never ever puts a burden or a responsibility, taklif, except that which you can bear. He's never going to either test you or ask of you beyond what you can do, beyond what you can bear. So when Allah says, I know what you do not know, we should find comfort in that. Now after this, we know that Adam alayhi salam was created and Hawa was created, and then Allah commanded the angels to bow to Adam. And we know that Shaitan refused. And then we know that Adam was able to stay away from the tree, and we know that he slipped and he ate from the tree. But here is where I want you to focus. Adam slipped. He ate from the tree. But here is the point. What did he do after he ate from the tree? This is essential, because many of us, when we slip, when we make a mistake, when we let others down, we don't always know how to get back up. Many of us, when we fall, we stay down. We lose hope. That's not what Adam did. Earlier today, when I was speaking to the school, I gave this analogy. That you know when you're driving in the car and you have an address in your GPS? Yes? No? Okay. And you know when you are driving along and you make a wrong turn? What does your GPS do when you make a wrong turn? Does your GPS say, you know what, you're actually a terrible driver. You should just park the car, turn off the car, and stop trying to drive? Can you imagine what would happen if the GPS said that every time we made a wrong turn? No one would get anywhere. Am I right? Have you ever made a wrong turn? How many people, raise your hand if you've never made a wrong turn? If you raise your hand, I know that you don't drive. I know you don't have your license. So, yeah. It's impossible. We're gonna make wrong turns. The question is, what do we do after we've made a wrong turn? The GPS is actually programmed to say what? Recalculating. Make a U-turn. Make a U-turn. What is the GPS telling you to do? Tawbah. That's literally the meaning of tawbah, because tawbah means to return. Tawbah is when you're going in the wrong direction. You know? Tawbah is when you've made a wrong turn, but you realize it and you make a U-turn and you come back to the right path. Isn't that necessary anytime we get in the car? Yes or no? We have to be able to make a U-turn and get back on the right path. We cannot give up as soon as we mess up. And now when I go back to our origin, look at what our father and our mother did when they messed up, when they slipped. What did they do? They ate from the tree that they weren't supposed to. What did they do? رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Our Lord, we've wronged our own selves. We've made a wrong turn. And if you do not have mercy on us, if you do not forgive us and have mercy on us, we will be indeed among the losers. Why does Allah tell us this? And what does this have to do with our honor as women and as human beings? Here's what it has to do with it. If we do not have the ability to make that U-turn and come back to Allah when we mess up, we will not be able to get to our destination. Now here is what happens next. You guys ready for this? You don't look ready. You don't seem ready. Or as my friend says, you don't smell ready. No. What happens next? After the repentance of Adam and Hawa, what does Allah do? Does anyone know the story? He forgives him. Allah tells us, He confirms it, that He forgave him right away. And then what does He do next? He sends him down for his original mission. Remember what He said to the angels even before he was created? Remember what Allah said to the angels even before Adam was created. إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. See, some of us think this life is a punishment, that we're stuck here. But no, Allah said even before He created Adam that the intent was to honor Adam and Hawa by making them representatives on this earth. This is not meant to be a punishment, and it is not meant to be a place of suffering. And that's what brings me to the topic that I just recently wrote about, called healing the emptiness. Now, healing the emptiness is about the fact that in this life we experience pain. Raise your hand if you've never experienced pain. No one. Not even a newborn. Here you don't have to drive. You just have to be alive. The moment a human being comes into this earth, they experience pain. Immediately. That's why the child's screaming when they're born. It's because this life has an element of pain. And this is what the angels are asking about as well. But here is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's ready for it? I'm gonna need to know if you're ready, because I can't say it if you're not ready. All right. When Adam was sent down to this earth, alayhi salam, when our father and our mother, they were sent down to this earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them down with a promise. He said, go down. Some of you, yes, will be enemies one to each other. Do you have any enemies in your life? Maybe. But He also sent them down with a promise. He said, there will be guidance. When that guidance comes, whosoever follows that guidance, listen carefully, لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. What does that mean? It's a divine promise that yes, there will be pain in this life, but if you hold tight to the guidance of Allah, in this life, you will be safe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. No fear shall be upon them, nor shall they grieve. Now, what do you think when I tell you that? I just told you that Allah said that if you follow the guidance, you won't have grief or fear. So what do you think about that? I know what you think about that. You think, but wait a minute. I have Iman. So many people I know have Iman. They follow the guidance, but they still experience some fear and some grief. And here's what I tell you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not telling us we will not be touched by fear and grief. He is telling us that if we hold on to the guidance of Allah, we will not drown in fear or grief. And that is the promise of Allah. And Allah keeps His promise. Allah tells the truth. So let me explain what that means. As we go through this life, we will be tested. We will experience pain. We will experience loss. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. Allah tells us, you will verily be tested with something of hunger, something of fear. You will experience some level of fear. And you will experience loss. Loss of wealth, loss of people, souls, people that you love, people in your life, and loss of the fruits of your efforts. Have you ever worked really, really hard on something and it just didn't work out? Some of you must be living in Jannah, man. Not me. Everything works out for me. Everything works out for me. Okay, tell me the address of your Jannah, please. I want to come visit. It's impossible. We put in effort, and sometimes a lot of effort. God, a lot of effort to get an outcome, and it doesn't work. This is what Allah is telling us. He's saying, وَنَقَصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. It didn't work out. You tried everything. It didn't work out. This is part of dunya. But then what does Allah say next? وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give glad tidings to the people of sabr. Who are the people of sabr? الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إن لله وإن إليه راجعون. There's the definition. He defines these people of sabr as those who, when they are struck with a calamity, any of these things that are listed, something of hunger, fear, loss of wealth, loss of people, and loss of the fruits of your efforts. You know, you work really hard for a relationship to be successful, and it still isn't successful, or it still ends, or it still fails. You know, we are tested in different ways. We might try really, really hard to please someone. Still not pleased. Does it happen? Still not enough. You know, when you're just putting in so much effort, maybe you study really hard for an exam and you still don't do well. Does it happen? You're trying really hard for a certain job and you still don't get it. You're working really hard and you still get, let go from your job. Does it happen? You try really hard to be healthy and you still get sick. Does it happen? I met a woman actually in Australia, and she was talking about how she would exercise every day. She said she didn't even eat a hamburger her entire life. Like she was like so crazy healthy, healthy, health conscious. And she said, I believed that if I do all these things. You know, I work out every day. You know, she was like a personal trainer. She never ate anything unhealthy. You know, she thought that that would guarantee the outcome that she wanted. And you know what happened? She got cancer. And she talked about her story and how it humbled her, because it showed her she's not in control. And we can sometimes put in so much effort, invest so much time and money, and it still doesn't work out. And that is because we're not in charge. Allah is. And this is part of the tests of dunya. But Allah rewards the people of sabr. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And this is so powerful. Why? Because have you ever gone to someone who has just been struck with a calamity and said, congratulations? Have you done that? It's not what we say typically. But in a way, Allah is saying that, right? Allah is saying the people who have been struck by tragedy, by loss, by things not working out, He's almost congratulating those people. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Like bushra. What's bushra? Right? Why? Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them that glad tidings because of the level of their reward. Because of the level of their reward. You understand? In fact, we're told in a hadith that when people in Jannah, in the hereafter, see the reward of the people who were tested, they wish they were tested more in this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. This is so important, because Allah is defining the people of sabr. He is talking about them as those who, when a calamity befalls them, they respond with, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Allah we return. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. Imagine that I let you borrow my car, okay? And you get to keep that car. I let you keep that car for 10 years. 10 years, right? And then after 10 years, I come back and I take my car back. What's your response? Well, imagine during those 10 years, you had amnesia and you forgot it belongs to me. You thought it belongs to you. What's your response when I come to take it back? How dare you take my car? Right? How dare you take my car? But imagine you never had amnesia, and I come to take what belongs to me back. What's your response? Indeed, it belongs to you, and to you it returns. Yes or no? If we realize that everything belongs to Allah, everything belongs to Allah, the outcome of our efforts, everything that we love, all of our gifts belong to Allah. So when Allah comes to take it back, how can we possibly respond with sabr? Only in one case, if we realized who the owner actually is. Because only if you realize who the owner is, can you possibly respond with, indeed it belongs to you, and to you it returns. It's only the people of amnesia who say, why me? How could you do this to me, God? It's not fair. Why? Because I thought I owned the car. I forgot who the owner was. So I'm going to be angry. Why are you taking my car? See, when we don't realize that everything belongs to Allah, we will become very angry when Allah takes things. Do you understand? You become very angry. How could this be taken from me? It's mine. But it isn't. It belongs to Allah. And so Allah is defining for us how to have sabr. Who are the people of sabr? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّ إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That's not just a statement of the tongue. That's not only a statement of the tongue. It can also be a statement of the tongue. It was really cute. Today, the sister dropping us off at our hotel, she made a wrong turn and she said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It was so cute. I was like, wow. It's not only a statement of the tongue. It is a way of seeing the world. Do you understand? To recognize that everything belongs to Allah and to Him it returns. Now I want to take a moment, if you allow me, to talk a little more about the meaning of sabr, because this is very important. Now here in this ayah, Allah defines the people of sabr. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the myths of sabr that we have in our community. Okay? Let me give you an analogy. Imagine that you walk into your house, or maybe you're sleeping in your house, and you hear a smoke alarm. Yeah? So you wake up, you see smoke, then you see fire. Now imagine that you see this fire and you see this smoke, and then you stand there and you fold your arms like this and you say, MashaAllah, I have so much sabr, I'm gonna do nothing. I'm gonna do nothing about this. I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna watch as my house burns down because MashaAllah, I have sabr. And then you're gonna have people come around you, collecting around you and saying, MashaAllah, look at her sabr. She's doing absolutely nothing about her house burning down. Is that sabr? Not a trick question, guys. Is that sabr? Is that the meaning of sabr? That I'm standing in my own burning house and I'm doing nothing. That's not what sabr is. What should I do if there's smoke and fire in my house? Anyone? Get a fire extinguisher. Call the fire department. Get some water. Do something, yeah? And that is your sabr. Because we have this myth, we have this misunderstanding that sabr means go back to sleep. Your house is burning down, have sabr, sister, go back to sleep. Have sabr, sister, do nothing, just stand there and watch. We have this myth, this idea that sabr means keep drinking the poison, but keep a smile on your face. Do you know I actually heard that someone say this to me? She says, my mother told me that I should be able to drink poison and keep a smile on my face. This is a lot of our culture, but it is not Islam. It is not Islam and it is not sabr. It is toxic culture, and it is to be passive in a way that you stand while your own house is burning down and you don't look for any fire extinguisher and you don't take any action. This isn't Islam. This is not what sabr is. Let me ask you a question. What did Hajar do? What did Hajar do? Hajar, she was in the middle of the desert, right? She was with her child and no one is there. There's no water, there's no one. So my question to you, what did she do? Did she lay down and say, I have so much sabr, I'm just gonna lay here? Did she say, I have so much tawakkul that I'm just going to sit here and do nothing? Tell me what she did. She got up and she ran between Safa and Marwa. And did she do it one time? How many times did she do it? Did she do it 2 times? Did she do it even 5 times? 7. 100% on your pop quiz. Yes. 7 times. Do you understand the lesson or no? She's not being passive. She's not saying, I have sabr, so I'm going to be passive and do nothing. She's not saying, I have tawakkul, so I'm going to be passive and do nothing. Allah, I'm going to wait here till Allah saves me. Of course she had tawakkul. Of course she had sabr, but she got up and she did something. And we are told to follow in her footsteps, right? You cannot complete Hajj or Umrah, man or woman, without following in her footsteps. She was a woman who was in a bad situation. It's a pretty bad situation to be stranded in a desert. But she didn't lay passive. She ran back and forth, back and forth. She didn't give up. I'll tell you this. You know, I have a lot of people from all over the world send me messages about their problems. So I read quite a bit of stuff. You know that there is a very common denominator among many of these issues. Many of these messages have something in common. Do you know what it is? Too many of us stay too long in bad situations. And we just sit. I cannot tell you how common. That is the common denominator. We don't get up and take action to improve our situation, to change our situation, to rectify our situation. We just sit passive. We keep drinking the poison and we keep the smile on our face. We stand in burning homes, we fold our arms and we say, MashaAllah, look at my sabr. That's our problem. By and large, that's our problem. This is a definition of sabr we have to rectify. We have to unlearn this incorrect definition of sabr. We have to unlearn it. Because this is not what we are taught. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you see something wrong, try to change it with your hand. And if you cannot change it with your hand, then try to change it with your tongue. By at least speaking out against it if it's wrong. If it's unjust, if it's abusive. And he says if you cannot, you're not able to do either of those things, at least hate it in your heart. And this is the weakest of Iman. So what is he teaching us? He's teaching us that part of Iman is taking action against injustice and abuse and anything that's wrong. Ithm, anything that's wrong. Munkar. Munkar is like a general word for anything bad. But we're not told if you see something bad, turn the other cheek. You see, that's not our religion. He didn't say when you see munkar, turn the other cheek. He said try to change it, take action, don't be passive. And I just want to say this. It was after Hajar took action 7 times that she was saved, isn't it? It was after her sa'i that Allah opened for her Zamzam. Sometimes we sit passively saying, Allah's gonna change my condition. Allah's gonna save me. But we don't do the sa'i. We don't do the work. Understand? When your house is burning down, you can say, Allah will save me. Allah will save my house. But you also have to go and get a fire extinguisher and call the fire department. This is part of our responsibility to take action. When the Prophet ﷺ saw a man, he wasn't tying his camel. What happened? He said, why aren't you tying your camel? He said, because I have trust in Allah. Some of us are like this. We're not tying our camel because I have trust in Allah. And what did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ say to him? اعقلها وتوكل. He said, tie your camel and put your trust in Allah. You have to do both.